Last time I mentioned that Android handhelds like the Ayn Odin 3 are becoming way more justified if you mostly play retro games and lighter Windows games. Because once handheld prices start going up, you naturally start asking whether you need a handheld PC for what you play. I think a lot of people skip that part. When you start looking at $600, $800, sometimes even close to $1,000, depending on the handheld and configuration, suddenly spending half that starts looking pretty attractive. And that's where the Odin 3 becomes interesting. Not because it beats devices like the Ally or Deck, but because for a lot of people, it might already be enough. People usually don't realize how capable Android handhelds have become. These are still niche devices, so most people either ignore them or assume they're just for old retro games. But once you actually look at what they can do now, they start making a lot more sense than people expect. And on top of that, these small devices bring their own advantages that you wouldn't get on a handheld PC. It's lighter, more compact, and doesn't feel like carrying around a small gaming PC. You end up using it more casually instead of feeling like every session has to be planned. Battery life also changes the whole experience more than I expected. With PC handhelds, I always end up checking battery percentages or thinking about where I left the charger. With something like the Ayn Odin 3, that feeling mostly goes away. Retro games barely drain it, lighter games can last for hours, and sleep mode feels instant enough to use it. It starts feeling less like carrying around a small gaming PC and more like carrying an actual handheld again. The Snapdragon 8 Elite is a massive step up for Android handhelds. Ayn Odin 3 might even be as powerful as a Steam Deck. For retro gaming, it almost feels excessive. That's probably the strongest argument for the Odin 3. You're spending a lot less than most handheld PCs while still covering way more games than most people realistically play. Now, obviously, people are going to ask the same thing. Can it play PC games? And the answer is, kind of. But this is where I think expectations matter more than benchmarks. The translation layer side of Android has improved a lot, and that opens up way more than people expect. Smaller Steam games, 2D games, indies, older PC titles, those can actually run surprisingly well. Especially games from that era where visuals still hold up, but they weren't designed around huge hardware requirements. That's where I think the Odin 3 starts making sense. And the nice thing is, this probably isn't the final level of performance either. As Turnip drivers keep improving, compatibility and performance should get better over time. So some of these results today could end up looking even better later. But even so, I wouldn't buy this expecting modern AAA games to become your main library, and I definitely wouldn't treat it as a replacement for a gaming PC. But if you've realized most of what you play doesn't actually need a full handheld PC anymore, this starts feeling like a really smart middle ground. Another thing worth mentioning is RAM. I know people always want to save money, but for this type of device, I probably wouldn't look at the lowest configuration if PC gaming matters to you. After the Steam Deck price increase and handheld prices in general moving upward, I think devices like the Ayn Odin 3 became easier to justify than ever. Not because handheld PCs suddenly stopped being good. They're still the better option if you want full PC gaming. But higher prices make you think more carefully about what you actually play. If most of your time goes into retro games, indies, emulation, and lighter PC titles, spending hundreds more on hardware you rarely use fully starts to feel unnecessary. That's why I think the Odin 3 sits in such a good spot right now. It doesn't try to replace handheld PCs, it just reaches far more people than I think most expected.